water.
Scotty B going to work in the paint.
Eastern Conference Final. New NBA champion. And it's a team from Toronto, Canada. We, the North, are now we, the champions.
What is going on, Raptors Nation? It is Luca here back with the Raptors Nation podcast. Hope you're all doing well. It is the fallout of the NBA draft lottery, which unfortunately did not go the Raptors' way. And now we know the Raptors' fate. The Raptors will have the number 9 pick in the upcoming draft. So I want to talk about that. Give you a couple of names early on here who the Raptors could target with that number 9 pick for the upcoming 2025 NBA draft, which will take place on June 25th. And then we're going to talk about some Giannis rumors. Yes, the Giannis Antetokounmpo Raptors rumors have been heating up over the last 24 hours. There was a report that came out, valid or not. It definitely got people buzzing and talking about this a lot online. So I wanted to weigh in on the possibility of a Raptors Giannis trade ever happening, if, of course, Giannis does, in fact, become available. Before we dive into today's pod, do me a solid, everybody, drop a like on the video and smash that subscribe button for more. You can catch this podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, the Raptors Nation podcast, coming to you here on YouTube as well. Drop a like, sub it up. Every single Thursday, we talk the latest out of Raptors land in long-form content. So appreciate all of you who have tuned in over the weeks and months. And be sure to follow me on X as well at Luca Rosano 3 for all things Raptors and NBA. All right, so let's get into it. The NBA draft lottery, I did a live stream reaction on my personal channel, and man, was I ever taken back by what transpired. Not only did we have the unfortunate result, the disappointing result of the Raptors, who basically dedicated an entire season to the tank, fall back 2 spots. But then we got the absurd top 3 order that was the Mavericks getting Cooper Flag with the number 1 overall pick. I mean, he's for sure going to go number 1. The Spurs get number 2, which could be ammo for them trying to go after Giannis. And then the 76ers get number 3. That was the worst nightmare scenario. Not only did the Raptors fall back, but the 76ers, who basically turned up their tank last minute to try to save their draft odds, get rewarded. Whereas the Raptors, who have suffered 2 straight down years, including this past year of trying to tank, trying to put themselves in a good position in the lottery, get screwed? Like, are you kidding me? So it was definitely disappointing. I mean, I would have, at that point, the Raptors staying at number 7 would have been a huge success, but to fall back to 9, I did not see that coming. I honestly had a good feeling the Raptors were going to move up into the top 4. As soon as I saw Masai Ujiri representing the team, I'm like, Masai's got to know something, right? To take time out of his busy schedule to actually represent the Raptors, because everybody was being represented by like players, but Masai was like the most important guy up there. And that gave me the hope that the Raptors were going to luck out, but instead they go back the other way. And Masai's reaction said it all. It was every Raptors fan's reaction when finding out the team had fallen to number 9. And then what transpired after that, I mean, you couldn't even have scripted it that well. And not going to try to go too much on a tirade here, but it's like, how can you view what happened there and not think the NBA had a hand in making that exact scenario happen? The conspiracy theorists really came out of the woodworks, and the conspiracy theorist in me really came out because I could not have justified that any way, shape, or form. So that was just crazy to see. The Mavericks, they trade Luca out of nowhere. It's deemed the worst trade. It's like, why the hell did these guys do this? And then they get the consolation prize of Cooper Flag a couple months later. Really? It still bugs me when I think back. But the reality is, it's in the past. For the Raptors, they now do know their draft fate. They get number 9. I mean, this is a team that they would have definitely benefited from getting into the top 5 even, because this is a top-heavy draft. And it's not like you can't get a real good prospect at number 9, but you go from drafting a potential guy who can start soon if you were to get into that top 4, top 5, to now you're looking at a guy who's going to fill out your bench and you just hope can blossom and develop from there. So it really changes things because now you got to really focus in on the middle of the lottery, and the Raptors have to hammer this pick. This is a team that has been dedicated to this. They're in the midst of the rebuild. They expedited the rebuild by making that Brandon Ingram trade, but they got to hit this pick because next season, we're not going to talk about the tankathon. We're not going to talk about tanking. The Raptors are going to be competing. That is going to be the expectation. I know it's a deep, solid 2026 draft class, might even be better than this year's, but I don't think the Raptors are going to be a part of that equation, nor would they want to be a part of that equation. And really, this basically solidifies the fact that tanking just doesn't work. I've seen it all. After seeing how that transpired and, the whole rig narrative comes into it, tanking serves no purpose. Like, imagine if it's bad for the Raptors, but it's way worse for the likes of the Hornets, the Wizards, the Jazz. Like, I feel for those teams and their fan bases because imagine if you're those teams. You don't have a lot to look forward to. You're kind of always in the same rut of the lottery. You haven't been relevant for so long, and it's like you barely won any games. Those should have been the teams rewarded. I'd be much more happy, or I guess happy is not a good word to use because I wanted the Raptors to get up there, but I'd be much more okay with it if the top 4 involve those teams. If the Wizards got the number 1 pick, if the Jazz, because those teams, they suffered brutal basketball, so they deserved getting that pick. Not a team that decided to tank in the last 2 months in the Sixers, or a team in the Mavs that literally just made it to the NBA Finals. So, like, that to me just screams tanking. Yeah, like, I was always kind of on board of tanking, and a lot of you might be thinking, oh, Luca, you said they should tank, and I was, but like, after what I saw, I'm officially off tanking. Like, tanking clearly doesn't work, especially when you're battling maybe manipulation of the lottery, whether or not it was rigged. I'll leave that to you. I have my thoughts on that, but to tank and then come up empty-handed, that is the worst feeling in the world. So I feel for those fan bases. I feel for the Wizards who have no number 1 pick to show for. I mean, the Pistons were that team before. If they didn't take that massive leap, I mean, where would they be? Because that was a team that always had the worst record, and they would always wind up with the 5th pick. Like, that's BS. That really is BS. I feel like those teams should be rewarded. So, like, since they flattened the odds, it has not gone, smoothly for those teams. And this was just crazy to witness how it went down. So anyways, yeah, no more tanking, no more tank talk. The expectation for this Raptors team is going to be to go out there and compete. So that's why they have to nail this pick, because this pick is going to be huge in putting the final piece, if you will, with this team, because outside of this, I don't see them making any drastic moves. So if they get themselves a good prospect here on number 9, just to fill out their rotation, fill out their roster, then you're going to be going into next season with high expectations in an Eastern Conference where there is going to be an opportunity to move on up. Let's call it for what it is. A lot of teams are going to be taking a step back, and the Raptors could, in fact, take that leap forward. And I think at the very least, they'll be a playing team. That's kind of like the early read just based on where this team stands now. But another pick will help. Essentially, it is another lottery pick. It is something. Remember, the Grizzlies did draft Zach Edey at number 9. And he ended up being a real big contributor for them. So you can still get a player who's going to impact things. Will it be a complete game changer? Likely not, but you're still in a position to get a good player. And look, the Raptors' history at this spot has been really good, right? This is the 4th time in franchise history they've had the 9th overall pick. And in previous seasons, they drafted T-Mac, DeRozan, and Jakob Poeltl. So that's a pretty good track record when looking at that 9th spot. So it's going to be up to Masai and company to nail the pick, but let's take a look at some early draft options for the Toronto Raptors. It's never too early to start looking ahead, and I did do a separate video on my channel about this, and I'm just going to basically reiterate some of the names I went into more detail there. But basically, I think the Raptors, like when you look at this team need-wise, it's clear they need a big. So the 2 names that immediately pop up are Queen and Malawak, 2 guys who I thought the Raptors would be in line to taking at number 7. The question now is, are these players going to still be available? Malawak probably not. Queen might even be taken before that. I think it's more likely Queen will still be on the board, though, than Malawak at this spot. So for the sake of it, going based on need and guys who I had at 7, I think Malawak makes a lot of sense. He's my pick. If he's still on the board, I'm going Malawak. I'm not overthinking it. This team needs a backup big. Yeah, you can say, oh, it might be redundant because they got Chomchi, but I think having Malawak with his defensive upside would be a real good selection here. You're filling a need. I think he can slate in as quickly as next season as his team's backup big. He can learn from Pirtle. He's got the intangibles. He's got the size. Don't overthink it. If Malawak is still on the board, Raptors should take Malawak. I'm going with that. And then the other thing is Queen. He's more of the offensive-minded big. The thing about Queen, though, is you saw, his workouts. His jump shot's really clunky. Did not like how that looked at all. And I think the Raptors should prioritize defense in this situation. So, again, I'd be more inclined, obviously, to Malawak. But, hey, Queen is still a fascinating prospect. The way he's just able to dazzle with the rock, he definitely carries the rock a lot more differently than most big men. He's kind of an entertaining player to watch. And he is, he really made a name for himself in that March Madness tournament, being that hub for Maryland, getting that signature game winner. So I think Queen, if that jumper, if it falls, it falls. I know it doesn't look good, but if that jumper falls, he can end up being a real nice player as well. Yakachunas is another name I throw out there. He's a guy who has fallen. This was a guy who was touted as being as high as 5 earlier in the college season. He's a combo guard, got great size, smooth jump shot. Can he do more off the ball, though? That's the question. And then where does he really fit with this Raptors team? They have a ton of guards. He's obviously not going to start over IQ, nor do I think you can have an IQ in Yakachunas backcourt. But will the Raptors, take a flyer on him and take him in hopes that he can develop into something special and kind of bet on him because his draft stock fell? That would probably be the thinking there. Asengu or Asenge, I'm still trying to figure out how to say his name. I think it's Asengu. He's been kind of rising a lot. He's that really raw project. He's a guy that has his offense has come along a lot more recently. I think he's an enticing player with just his ability and his size to guard every position. He's got that speed, and he's kind of like the type of Raptors-y pick that they would take here. He's very toolsy. He's got a lot in his arsenal, just in terms of his intangibles, his size, his length, his quickness, his speed. So I feel like that would be a bit of a gamble, if you will, but it's one of those things that can pay off really, really well. A guy who's been making a lot of leeway or headlines as of late with the Raptors' potential picks, Carter Bryant. I think defensively he's solid. He didn't shoot it a whole ton in college for you to definitively write off his shooting. He's got a nice shot, and I think his potential is to be a solid 3-and-D type player. So defensively sound, can guard very well. If he gets that jump shot to fall consistently, again, didn't shoot it a whole ton at that next level, he can potentially be a real big get and one of those players that ends up going 9, and you're like, how did he end up going 9? So that Carter Bryant, I think, is a name to look out for. And then there was a clip of Kawhi talking about him because his dad coached Kawhi for a bit, and PG had some high words for him. This was a couple years ago, I think that clip was taken. So that's a player that's really caught my attention as well. And then another player is Colin Murray Boyles of South Carolina. ESPN's first post-lottery mock actually had him going to the Raptors. He's a true power forward. He averaged 16.8 points, 8.3 rebounds. And, you look at him defensively is where he can really, show you a lot of his value. He was still a hub for his team just with his playmaking, his unselfishness. He just has a true feel for the game. His shooting is just the issue, his 3-point shot in particular. Can he develop more of a jump shot? I mean, there was a clip of him shooting. And yeah, he wasn't making any shots. Again, you're not going to just you're not going to just judge him based on that, but can he get that shot to be more consistent? But in terms of a guy who can pretty much fit into lineups and enhance the rotation defensively, I think he would be a guy who can make a lot of sense with the Raptors' second unit. His offense, again, does seem limited, but other parts of his game, like his passing and defense, are his real big sells here. So that's another player who has been getting linked to the Raptors a ton since the Raptors have found out their fate at number 9. So, and then another player is Jeremiah Fears. I think he has the most like upside of a pick, but I've seen Fears go as high as 5 to Utah because I think Fears has that opportunity to be like a game changer. Like he just has that scoring ability, that it factor, can score in a variety of different ways, kind of just like that guy who you think can, that guy who basically like you would not be surprised if he ends up being a stud at the next level based on what you saw from him in the college game. But again, I don't think Fears would still be here. If he is, that's another player the Raptors could take if they absolutely think he can become something. Or else, like, I think convention just says, like, go based on what you need, right? And what you need is a center. And I think Bryant is a player that would be an interesting potential pick for the Raptors. I wouldn't be surprised if they take him just because of that 3-and-D potential that he has. But yeah, the Raptors need a backup big. That is their need on this team. So are they going to go with a big, or are they going to go just with the best player available? So yeah, Masai and Bobby Webster, they got a big decision to make here. I think you can end up getting a real nice piece, but you got to, hone in on this thing and make sure it's the right pick. Again, there are a couple of names, options. There are going to be options there. So it's just all about getting it right. And honestly, like, I feel good with the Raptors' judgment here, like the front office, because like just look at last year's draft. They nailed it. Like all their picks are now rotation players, which is crazy to think. Like obviously Chomsky's still a work in progress. He's more of a project, and Mobile, I don't think he's gonna be in the rotation, but like next season, like to start per se, but like you're looking at like Shed and Walter, like those guys are absolute studs. And then Mobile even came along nicely towards the end of the season. So it was a really, really successful draft for the Toronto Raptors. So like you look at that, you look at just their track record in general, I think they will be able to find somebody of value at this number 9 spot. Like it's still a top 10 pick at the end of the day. Like I know it sucks. You would have liked this to be top 5, top 4, but it's still a top 10 pick in what is, considered a good draft. So that is still something and not nothing. So we'll see where the Raptors ultimately go with their pick. But let me know, guys, if you were the Raptors with the number 9 pick of the 2025 NBA draft, who would you select? Let me know down below. And I'll do more draft stuff, obviously, as we get closer to the draft next month. All right, guys, I wanted to end with this. And some of you are probably sick of it. Some of you are probably excited because, I don't know, the buzz, it seemingly is getting more and more. And there was that report that came out from Scoop B. Again, very questionable source, but it stated that Giannis prefers to stay in the East. And of course, the two names were the Raptors and Nets, and that got this fan base into a frenzy. And it got people thinking, wow, do the Raptors actually have a shot here to get Giannis if he becomes available? And that's the thing. All of this is just barbershop talk at the end of the day. I mean, Giannis is still with the Bucks. He's under contract, but the Shams piece the other day kind of got the buzz rolling that Giannis is open, to potentially going in a different direction if that's what he and the Bucks decide. Like the trade possibility, I think, is a real thing. And it's going to come down to if, in fact, he becomes available, because if he becomes available, I do believe the Raptors are going to be a part of those teams gunning for Giannis. And that's the thing. It's not even about like the Scoop report. That's not buying me in, luring me in. The thing that's really lured me in is the fact that Giannis could be open for trade. He could be on the move. And the Raptors have always long coveted Giannis. And it would be a full circle moment for Masai in this franchise to get the guy who they tried hard to get in 2013 and who they try to get again when he was supposed to hit the free agency market but never did, because that's when the Bucks ultimately re-signed him. So I'm just giving this a shot and putting stock into this solely based on the relationship the Raptors, Masai Ujiri, have had to Giannis over the years. Like, this is Masai's guy. He has always been a Giannis guy. And it just makes so much sense that the Raptors would be a part of this equation to potentially get him. You know, in terms of where they are, big Greek community, it is a major city. You know, Masai would give Giannis a lot of leeway with things, call the shots, if you will. And there are some good pieces here that he can play with in an Eastern Conference that is very wide open. All of a sudden, you're looking at it from a Raptors fan's perspective, and it's like, damn, we can take the similar leap forward that we did in 2019 when a beloved star was traded then for Kawhi, and that worked out pretty well. There's an opportunity. If Giannis is made available, there's an opportunity for Masai to pull something off that instantly makes the Raptors a contender in a weak East, where the Celtics, you don't know where they're going to be at. Tatum's probably going to miss all next season. The Cavs, who knows what they look like. The Bucks, if they end up rebuilding. It's the Pacers and Knicks, and I wouldn't deem those teams unbeatable by any stretch of the imagination. So, of course, it comes down to what would you be willing to give up for Giannis? And that's been the talking point of, like, how could the Raptors pull this off? And I know there's people being hopeful, like, oh, you don't have to trade Scotty or BI. We can keep all three. Just stop right there in your tracks. There is no way the Raptors are able to have Scotty, Ingram, and Giannis. There's absolutely no shot. You're either trading BI or Scotty, and BI makes zero sense because if you do make a trade like this, you're in win now mode, and BI is a win now player. He's in his prime. You just traded for him. It would be Scotty Barnes. It would be Scotty Barnes. That is the only way a deal gets done here, in my opinion. And then the Raptors got to ask themselves, are we willing to trade Scotty, a guy who we're rebuilding this thing around, a guy who we weren't willing to give up for KD, for Giannis at this time? And I proposed something on my personal channel just the other day. I would do a trade of Scotty Barnes, Grady Dick, Abaji, multiple first-round picks, even including this year's, for Giannis. Because when you look at it, I thought it would be deemed more of a no-brainer than it is. But Giannis to Scotty, I know Scotty still hasn't scratched the surface yet. He has still not entered his prime. But I'm taking Giannis all day. I do not think Scotty Barnes reaches Giannis's level. Giannis is a top 5 player. He's a multiple-time MVP. He's an NBA champion. Not too many guys reach that level. Generational type talents reach that level. So for as good as Scotty is defensively, he's no Giannis. So, like, for fans saying, how could you trade Scotty for Giannis? It's like, do you want to win? That's what it comes down to. If Masai wants to win, like he says he does, and you want to win soon, you got to make the tough decision in the room. And I think it would actually be one of the more compelling packages for Giannis, because the Raptors are actually one of the few teams that can offer a young all-star. And that would be the sell there. Because when you look at what other teams can offer, not just talking about the Nets of the whole East narrative, but like the Rockets, they would offer what? Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, a bunch of picks, maybe Şengün. That Scotty Barnes offer is still better. OKC, I mean, Jalen Williams with a bunch of picks, maybe. And then another team like the San Antonio Spurs, what can they offer? Like Vassell, like Stephon Castle picks. Like, they're not going to offer, obviously, Wemby or anybody. Like, Houston is not going to offer Amen Thompson. The Thunder are not going to offer Shea. And I'm not trying to compare, like, Scotty to those guys. That's all I'm doing here. What I'm saying is the Raptors would actually have one of the better offers, because you're actually giving a young all-star in Scotty to the Bucks, where I would think if you're from the Bucks perspective, they would want a young star back and draft capital. And the Raptors can do both. with their offer here. And you're getting Grady Dick, who I think can still become a very good role player in this league. You're just selling on him now. So I think that's a really good offer compared to what other teams can potentially offer. So I think from that lens, then you look at like Giannis makes a lot of sense with BI. And then you would still have a team around that you can compete next season. Like you're not completely gutting your roster. You would still have IQ, RJ, BI, Giannis, and Pirtle. That's a pretty good starting five. That could arguably be the team to beat in the East if Boston doesn't look the same next season. They're not going to look the same without Tatum. The bench you would have to fix up because you're losing Grady and Abaji, but you would still have Walter, who I'm high on, Shed. You would have to just get some guys there, some veterans to fill out that rotation. But like, I don't think you're completely gutting the roster. And I think you put yourself in a position to really compete in a weak East next season where there's going to be no Tatum. So it's very interesting to speculate. And again, this is all hypothetical until it's made official that Giannis is going to get traded. This is all essentially, you could deem it just a waste of time. But if that ends up happening, I fully expect the Raptors to be a part of those conversations. And then how far does Masai go in making that potential deal happen? That is the ultimate question. But for Giannis, I'd be open to trading Scottie. And I think, that's something that the Bucks would be looking for. So we'll see how that all plays out. If not, the Raptors, they still got BI, which is the silver lining. I feel like Masai making that trade hedged against the draft lottery happening the way that they did. So now that trade looks even better because if you didn't have BI and you just had the 9th pick, things would look not as good as they do now. So regardless, the Raptors, I think next season are going to be competing. I think that's made clear at this point where they're at, what they're going to be adding, what they're going to be working with. So anyways, guys, that is going to conclude today's pod. Let me know your thoughts, everything discussed today. Let me know down below, who would you draft at number 9? Would you be willing to trade Scottie for Giannis? Drop a like, subscribe to the channel, leave this podcast a 5-star review wherever you get your favorite podcast, and go and follow me on X at Luca Rosano 3. That is it for me. It's Luke signing off. Thanks for watching. I will catch you all again in the next one.